Welcome to Excel Basics video number 23. Hey, in this video, we got to talk about more data analysis features in Excel. We want to talk about sort, filter, and flash fill. Now, of course, if we're going to use these data analysis features or any of the other ones we've seen in the class so far, we have to know the definition of data analysis and business intelligence. No problem, we do by now. We're converting raw data into useful information. And of course, if we use any of the data analysis features, we have to have a proper data set. Field names at the top, records and rows, and empty cells all the way around. Now, so far in this class, we've talked about data analysis features like pivot tables, Excel table feature, relationships in the data model, formulas like sum, ifs, and even VLOOKUP. So in this video, we're going to see a few more of the amazing data analysis features, sort, filter, and flash fill. Now, data ribbon tab. Actually, the biggest mistake they did when they invented these ribbon tabs was putting pivot tables on the insert ribbon tab. As we've seen so many times in this class so far, pivot tables and even our Excel table feature, those are really data analysis features that should be over here on the data ribbon tab. Now, we're going to talk today about sort, filter, and flash fill. Now, let's go over to the sheet sort. Now, what does sorting do? It organizes a proper data set, a table, or a single column into alphabetic, numeric, or color order. How to sort? Just like our other data analysis features, we click in one cell. But for sorting, you have to click in the one cell in the column that you want to sort, and then use the sorting feature. And there's a couple different ways we'll see how to sort. Here's our first example. We have sales, and I want to sort them smallest to biggest and then biggest to smallest. Now, I'm clicking in a single cell up in the Data Ribbon tab, Sort and Filter group. There's A to Z, that's smallest to biggest. This is biggest to smallest. And then there's the dialog box. Now, the buttons are quick and easy. I simply click that and instantly from smallest to biggest. Now, if I click Z to A, biggest to smallest. If I want to use the dialog box, I have a little bit more control. I'm going to click that button. It'll ask you which column. Well, we only have one. Cell values. We'll see later that we can choose cell, color, font color. And we select from here, smallest to largest or largest to smallest. I'm going to say smallest to largest. Click OK. Now, sometimes we need to use that dialog box because look what happens here. That's a field name, but really this is all text. So sort doesn't really know what to do. If I click A to Z, oh, look at that. Employees, the field name is mixed up. Control Z. So now I'm going to click in a single cell and use the sort dialog box. Here, up in the upper right-hand corner, just like our Excel table feature, there's a My Data Set Has Headers. Now it clearly knows to go by employees, cell values, and I'm going to do A to Z, click OK. Now those are single column examples. The more amazing way that sort works is in this example, I want to sort the entire data set to show the fastest times at the top. We have the date, the racetrack, the racer's name, and their age. Now, I added some yellow here just to emphasize that when we sort this column, all of the records are sorted perfectly. So I'm going to click in a single cell and use my A to Z. And just like that, you can see that the record remained intact. I clearly see that Zane had the fastest time. Isaac and Logan were second and third. Now, that's sorting with a single column. Let's scroll down and see how to sort by multiple columns. Now, what we'd like in this example is to actually sort all of the racers' names in perfect order. And then for each racer, sort the time column from smallest to biggest. Now, this means we're going to sort the proper data set on 2 columns, and we want to sort the time column within the racer column. That means we want individual sorts. I want all of the racers' names together, so all of Isaac's name, and then a little mini sort over here, smallest to biggest for Isaac. And then the next racer is Logan, and then I want another mini sort just for Logan, smallest to biggest. Now, when you say sort time column within the racer column, because it says within, that means the racer column must be sorted last. That means all of these names are sorted after we sort the time column. Also, when it says within, it means that the racer column is referred to as the major sort. That means we want this one sorted perfectly from A to Z, but then we want lots of mini sorts in the time column. Now, you may see this written as sort times for each racer or sort times within racer column. However you phrase it, though, the major sort is going to be racer column. Now, there's 2 ways that we can do this. All right, so we're going to see the button way and then the dialog box way. Now, the button way means if this is the major sort, I have to do that one last. So I click in the time column, and I want A to Z. Notice these are perfectly sorted smallest to biggest. But now when I come over and click in the racer column and click A to Z, this is sorted perfectly from top to bottom. But look at that. There's a little mini sort, smallest to biggest. Then we get down to the next racer, a new mini sort, smallest to biggest. Now I'm going to Control Z, Z, because now I want to show you the dialog box method. Now, when we click on the Sort Dialog Box button, now unlike the column method, I'm going to choose the major sort first. So I'm going to pick the racer name, cell value A to Z. And then I'm going to click Add a Level. Notice it says Sort By, then By. And this is where we select the time. Cell value smallest to largest. So what's different about the dialog box is that the major sort comes on top, then you have the secondary sort column. When I click OK, I get exactly the same result. A bunch of mini sorts in the time column, but the racer column, the major sort, is sorted A to Z perfectly. All right, so you can pick which way you like. If you're doing the buttons, you have to select time first, then racer. If you're doing the sort dialog box, the racer goes on top. All right, let's see another example. We have date, sales rep, autos, and sales. And what we'd like is to see all of the sales reps' names sorted together. And then within sales rep, I want to see their sales largest to smallest. Now, before we do this, I want to convert this to an Excel table because the Excel table feature has automatic sort and filtering buttons at the top of each column. So I'm going to click into single cell, use the keyboard Control-T. My table has headers. Click OK. Now, of course, as we've seen earlier in the class, the great thing about the Excel table feature is it's dynamic. I can add or remove records and anything pointing to the table, like a chart, a formula, a pivot table, relationships features in the data model. They all know when new records are added. But another great benefit is at the top of each column, I have a filter dropdown. Now, it has sorting at the top and then filtering down here, which is our next topic. Now, I want to sort sales within sales rep. So I'm first going to select the dropdown and say largest to smallest. And instantly, that column sorted largest to smallest. And then I select sales rep name. I'm going to do A to Z. And just like that, I have exactly what I want. Sales sorted largest to smallest within the sales rep. Now let's go down and look at our next example, because guess what? We can sort by color. If I want red on top and then yellow, I can actually pick any one of these columns. Click the drop down, and this is an Excel table. So look at this. We have sort smallest to largest, largest to smallest, and sort by color. I can select the red, and that'll bring that to the top. Let's now try yellow. Sort by color, yellow. Oh, that brings the yellow on top. That's where the sort dialog box comes in handy. By the way, we can click this in, sort by color, and then down here, custom sort. So I'm going to click that. That's just the sort dialog box. Now I can choose. I want red on top, then add a level and sales cell color yellow. So I can actually choose. Not only that, but once I select one, I can use the up arrows if I really wanted yellow on top. I don't want yellow on top, so I'm going to push it down. Click OK. That is amazing. Now, one last sorting example. This is all the different things we can have in Excel. Numbers, text, true, false, errors, and even empty cells. And that's the order in which everything will be sorted when we click A to Z. Now, sometimes people like to use sorting to find all of the errors in a data set. But one thing is, if I have empty cells, I'm going to have to manually highlight the whole column to force the issue of including the empty cells. Now, the errors in empty cells will come to the bottom if we sort A to Z, data. There's the A to Z, and just like that, empty cells to the bottom, and then errors. If I reversed it and did Z to A, which is often what people do when they want to get the errors to the top, notice that the empty cells always are down at the bottom. All right, now we want to go talk about the filter feature. I'm going to click on the sheet filter. Now, what does filter do? Filter feature allows you to hide records that don't match your criteria. So, for example, if I say only show me Alma, all the records that don't include Alma will be hidden, and I will only see Alma records. Now, how do we add filter drop-down arrows? Notice the drop-down arrows are already there for sorting and filtering. The way I added those is up in the sort and filter group, I click the filter button. Now, if I click this to turn it off, notice they're turned off. If I click it, it turns it back on. There's also, if I hover my cursor, there's a keyboard. If you do this a lot, Control-Shift-L is good to know. And of course, the other way is to convert it to a proper Excel data set. Now, here's some notes here of the different ways that you can filter. And we have 7 examples. Now, actually, the perfect use for the filter feature is when you want to extract records that match a set of criteria. So our first example, we simply want to select Alma, hide all the other records, and copy and paste them to a new sheet. So our goal for example number 1 is to extract from this data set only the records where Alma made the sale. Now, filter dropdowns, I'm going to click this, sorting at the top. But look at this. There will always be a list of unique items that allows you to simply check or uncheck what you want to see. I'm going to uncheck Select All. And when I select Alma, that means every record will be hidden except for the records that contain Alma in the sales rep column. When I click OK, instantly everything else is hidden. Now, you can tell that it's filtered a few ways. There's a little filter icon there. We could see that the numbers are missing. Those are hidden rows. And of course, now we have this sky blue color for the row numbers where Alma was the sales rep. Now I want to copy this. I have a single cell selected, so I use my keyboard. Control asterisk on the number pad to highlight everything. Control C to copy. And notice what Control C does. It's totally only copying the visible cells. Now I want to insert a new sheet. I'm going to come over and use the plus, or I can use the keyboard. Shift F11. There's a new sheet. I'm going to double click it and call it Alma Records and enter. And now in cell A1, I'm going to Control and roll first. Cell A1, Control V. That is absolutely such a handy tool to have when we want to extract just a certain set of records. Now let's go back over to filter. Now how do you turn the dancing ants off that are dancing around the visible cells? You hit the escape key. Now how do you turn off filter? You can come to the filter dropdown and clear. You can also come up here, and this one is useful when you have multiple columns filter. You click that, or I use this all the time. Control-Shift-L is a toggle, so I can hold Control-Shift and hit LL. LL means it turned it off and then turned it back on again. Now, each one of these columns, date, text, and numbers, those are different data types. And so if we click the dropdown, for each data type, there'll be a set of unique filters. So when you have a date column, there's date filters. Look at this. We'll come back and look at between, later, tomorrow, today, yesterday, next week, next month, this quarter. That is simply amazing. Let's try yesterday, and I'm shooting this video on 11/21, so instantly I only see yesterday's sales. All right, I'm going to Control-Shift-LL to remove all filters. Now, text columns, I can click the filter dropdown, and there's a special set of text filters. Equals, does not equals, begins with, contains. Sometimes we use contains like there are addresses, and you only want to see addresses on San Pablo Avenue, for example. The example we want to do is we want to do begins with. And I want to say begins with the letter A. Now, Excel and Access are not case sensitive, but I'm going to type capital A. That means it'll find only the sales reps that start with the letter A. Click OK. And just like that, you can see that it is filtered. Now, I can turn it off by simply coming up and clicking clear, or use Control-Shift-LL. Number. This is a special data type, so I can come up and there's a special set of number filters. Equals, does not equal, greater than or equal to, and I love this one, the top 10. I'm going to say top 10, and I'm going to choose just the top 5. Now you can actually choose items or percent. I want the top 5 numbers, so I simply click OK, and just like that, everything else is hidden. Remember, we use filter mostly to filter and then copy and paste somewhere else, extracting records. But we're just going through and seeing each one of the different types of filter we can do. Now I'm going to Control-Shift-LL. Or logical test, and an and logical test. We talked a lot about and logical tests when we looked at the sum ifs functions and the pivot table feature. Or logical test is different in that when you have an and logical test, all the tests must get a true. But when you have an or logical test, only one of the logical tests have to come out true. In essence, you can get one or more truths. Now, we want to show the records for the sales rep Alma or Rena. That means we're actually asking the question of each record. Are you Alma or are you Rena? Now, we got a true because this is Alma. But when we ask the question here, are you Alma or Rena? They're both false, so we don't include that record. And it's easy. You actually don't even need to understand what an or logical test is. You simply click the filter dropdown, uncheck everything, and simply click with a check mark for the items you want. So all we want is Alma and Rena. When I click OK, just like that, I have Alma and Rena records. I then could highlight, copy, and paste them wherever I want. All right, Control-Shift-LL, and logical test. I want to see the records that include, using the check boxes, Alma in the sales rep column and autos for Chevy. Notice, as soon as I say Chevy on this, Alma's Ford and Toyota records will go away. Because although I got a true here, I got a false here. We have to get 2 trues for an and logical test to be passed. I'm going to uncheck everything and select Chevy. Click OK. And now I only see records that contain both Alma and Chevy. Now, Control-Shift-LL, one last filter, and this is such a great filter. Oftentimes, we're interested in a particular month or quarter or year. I can select the drop-down. And there is a unique list, which you can actually open this and drill down to any particular day. But I definitely don't want, and actually our criteria is going to be for November of 2017. So I could literally uncheck everything and select just November. But a more handy way to do this when you have unusual date combinations is to use a date filter and say between. Then I say is after or equal to, and this is the lower end, 11/1/2017. And then is before or equal to, this is the last possible day, 11/30/2017. So I have a lower and upper. It will do a between logical test. It's got to be both greater than or equal to the lower and less than or equal to the upper. In essence, when I do this between on a date column, each cell with a date has to meet both conditions. Now, normally we just think of this as between, but really that date has to be both greater than or equal to the lower and less than or equal to the upper. All right, I'm going to click OK. And just like that, I have November records. Filter feature, absolutely amazing for hiding records you're not interested in. Now, we got to go look at our last topic, flash fill. I'm going to click on the sheet, flash fill. Now, what does flash fill do? Flash fill is a fast way to clean a column of data, like combining first and last name or extracting state abbreviation from a description. Hey, wait a second. Look at this. We already saw how to join first and last name in video number 12, and we saw how to extract the state abbreviation from a particular product code in video number 12. So I want to go back over to video 12. And yes, in video 12, I just copied and pasted from that. We did all of the examples we're going to see for flash fill, but here we did them with formulas. Notice when we wanted to combine first and last, F2, we made a formula to combine. Now, the advantage to formulas is that if I come here and change this to Tim and hit Enter, it updates instantly. So formulas are the way to go when your source data might change and you want your solution to change. But if it's a one-time deal, you do not need to create a formula. There's a much easier way to clean our data, in essence. In this example, we had first and last, but we really needed a column that combined both. So we are cleaning our data. We're going from data that's not so useful to data that is specifically useful for our particular situation. Now let's go over to flash fill. Now our first example, we want to join first and last name. And all you have to do for flash fill is give it an example of what you want, and then flash fill will assume that's the pattern that you want. In essence, for us, we want to combine these two. So if I type both the names here and hit Enter, flash fill can automatically combine all the cells below. Now, the key is for flash fill is that you have to know your data. What patterns in the data do you see? Well, for us, this is a simple first example for flash fill. We simply want everything from both of these cells. So let's see how to do this. I'm going to type Jimmy space Garza. Now when I hit Enter, as soon as I type E, which is the first letter in Emma, a ghost list appears. This is flash fill. If I'm looking through the list and it looks correct, I can simply hit Enter, and that's flash fill. I can also do other things like please show last name, comma, space. So here I'm inserting a comma and a space. And then Jimmy, Enter. As soon as I type the first letter P, Look at that. Flash Fill has recognized that we established a pattern. Our pattern was, please get everything from the last cell, then insert a comma and a space, and get everything from the first cell. We gave it an example that Flash Fill could understand, and so it suggests a list. And when I hit Enter, boom, there is Flash Fill. Now, the key is always, can Flash Fill recognize the example you give it? Now, here's another example. This one's simple. And really, the pattern that we see here is please extract everything after the last space. Now, when we did this with formulas, we extracted the last two characters, right? But really, Flash Fill will see it as, hey, everything after the last space. So I'm going to type CO, Enter. As soon as I type CA, whoa, wait a second, it didn't work. Now if I hit Enter, now this is where I know that the pattern is consistent. I always want everything after that last space, so I can come up and click Flash Fill. Or there is a keyboard, Control E, if you do this a lot. I'm going to use Control E. And just like that, I forced Flash Fill to do Flash Fill. Let's go look at example number 3. We want first and last. Now, it's not as obvious here because notice we have Jimmy and then A period Garza. So we have 3 names. Here we have 3 names. Here we have 4. Here we have 2. It should be relatively straightforward because the pattern we want is please extract everything before the first space and everything after the last space. So I'm going to type Jimmy space Garza, Enter. And when I type Emma, there's our Flash Fill. Make sure, though, that you know what data you have in your column, meaning we had some with 3, some with 4, and some with 2. And make sure when you give it examples that when you look at the list here, that it's exactly what you want. When I hit Enter, there it is, just first and last. Here's an example we did in video number 12. I need to insert item, space, pound, and space before each one of the numbers. So I'm simply going to type item, space, pound, space, and then the number. When I hit Enter, I'm sure that this is a consistent pattern. So I'm either going to come up and click Flash Fill or Control E. And just like that, Flash Fill is a lot faster as compared to our formulas. Now, again, the benefit of formulas is clear. If something changes over here, like I changed this number, Flash Fill will not see that. So you got to use formulas when you want things to update. Now I'm going to Control Z on that. All right, example number 5. We want the product number, so we want everything before the comma. 5, 1, 7, 2, 3, 1, Enter, and I'm going to use Control E. Again, that is a consistent pattern all the way through the column, so we can simply Flash Fill. Here's our last example for Flash Fill, and it's a very common example. I copy stuff all the time from the internet. And instead of creating some formula over here, this is a one-time deal. It came with percentages and the actual watch time in the cell together, and that's not what I want. So I'm simply going to come over here because I want the minutes. I type 15, Enter. 64, Enter. Oh, it's not picking it up. So I'm either going to click the Flash Fill button or Control E. And there we go, Flash Fill all the way down. All right, so in this video, we saw some amazing examples of data analysis. We saw Flash Fill, as long as we give it a clear example of what we want it to do, Flash Fill will do it automatically. Over on the filter sheet, we saw the ever important filter feature to filter and hide rows we don't want, and then copy and paste to a new sheet to extract our data. And then over on the sort sheet, Control Home, we saw how to sort a single column. We saw how to sort a proper data set. And when we're sorting by multiple columns, if you're doing it with the buttons, the major sort comes last. And when you're doing it with the dialog box, the major sort is on top. All right, if you like that video, be sure to click that thumbs up, leave a comment, and sub, because there's always lots more videos to come from Excel is Fun. And in our next Excel Basics 24, we'll talk all about charts and graphs. All right, we'll see you next video.